I think he has a fascinating history. He started off one of a family of 12. They were all considered labourers. Life would have been very difficult for them back in England. And he came out as a convict for 14 years. It would have been very difficult for him, but he accumulated property. He was progressive. He was prepared to come out and pioneer this area. So I think he deserves great credit for his effort there. He settled out here at a time when it was outside the limits of settlement. And he came out, as many others did. He wasn't the only one. In fact, there were many before him. From about 1829, they started arriving around this area. And he was the one who settled the closest to where Young was. He had his lambing flat, which was where his sheep were lambing, in the exact area where Young was later formed. They had no responsibility as far as law and order, as far as roads. You were on your own, and of course there were the hostilities, and naturally enough they were taking the lands of the Aborigines, which were their hunting grounds. So it obviously caused major problems with the Aborigines, because generally they settled on the best places where the Aboriginals used to camp. He does not appear in official records until 1811, when he and his brother were charged for hay stealing. They were acquitted, but several months later he committed an offence of stealing a horse and was trialled in March Assizes in 1812. He was found guilty and he was sentenced to death, to be hung. 3 weeks later, that was commuted to 14 years in Australia was where they were transported to.
After White was emancipated in 1826, he decided not to return to England, but rather he remained in Australia and moved to Sydney. There, he had a slaughterhouse in George Street. In 1829, White applied for land from the Governor of New South Wales, Ralph Darling. His application was unsuccessful.
The leader of the clan at the time, he called him Kobinjaki. Traditionally, I don't know what his name is because it was never passed down, so it's just what's written in her book. Kobinjaki saw the lights at night, the fire at night, and they said, oh, that's not one of ours, and he sort of kept an eye on him for a couple of days, and then the meeting occurred. When Europeans met Aboriginals, it was war, because it was just taken over of land, where James White and Kobinjaki had a peaceful meeting, and Kobinjaki said, oh, this is no good where you camp here, you come with me, I'll show you a better place. So he took him down to Burrangong Creek, and plenty of flowing water there, and so like I said, it was a peaceful encounter. And then when James White went back to Sydney to get some of his stuff to bring out here to build the house and that, and he made a breastplate, had a breastplate made, and there's one here actually, a copy of the one that's here, and with his name on it, Kobinjaki, and Kobinjaki wore that with pride. He felt like a king. He was a very important person in our clan. He was the leader of our clan, but to wear this actual strange looking breastplate, it was, he just amazed. He was so respected in that.
In 1845, applied for Spring Creek, which was 20,000 acres, and Spring Creek covered the area where gold was discovered. Now, gold was discovered in 1860, in the June of 1860, and really it was a major blow to him, because the government then resumed the land. So he no longer had control of the 20,000 acres of Spring Creek. By 1860, James would have been 70 years of age. He'd led a very hard life. To come out here was a tremendous effort and survive out here. A lot of them didn't survive. A lot of them in the droughts of the 1830s and 1840s, in the recessions, a lot of them walked off their land. James White didn't do that. So I think his determination to continue here at Young was his greatest achievement.